Hello guys, it's One Piece Day again. Welcome to my channel, and let's talk about One Piece manga chapter 1062, Adventure in the Land of Science. In the previous chapter, the Straw Hat Pirates arrive in the Egghead, an island that's referred to be living 500 years into the future. This is also where they met Jewelry Bonnie, who was trapped inside a giant warm eddy. Unfortunately for the Straw Hat Pirates, Egghead doesn't give them a warm welcome. The moment they save Bonnie, they are attacked by a gigantic metallic shark. The shark hounds them, even causing the Thousand Sunny to capsize. Jimmy has to dive into the sea to save his captain and ship doctor, while Zoro and the others are left to fend for the rest of the crew. The giant robot brings the Thousand Sunny along with the Straw Hat Pirates ashore, where a female figure claiming to be Dr. Vegapunk appears before them. But before anything else, please click the bell, like, share, and subscribe to my channel, Animajack. Thank you. Germa 66. An emotionless excursion, meanwhile, in Chocolate Town, Cacao Island. Chocolate Town and its residents are all suddenly and completely frozen in ice. The issue begins with Frankie asking Vegapunk if she really is the Vegapunk, to which she responds that he's being loud. Frankie says that he admires her and that he spent 2 years in her research lab in Bald Eye Moor, studying her technology and later absorbing it into his own cyborg body. He says there are a lot of things he wants to show her, as Usopp comments on how the giant robot before them is from their dreams. Continuing on how it's more than times bigger than the Frankie Shogun, he wishes that Luffy and Chopper could see this right now. Hilariously, Sanji comments on how Vegapunk is a beauty, keeping with his classic priorities. Robin then interrupts that she's never heard of Vegapunk being a girl, also citing how the activity period, age, and appearance don't match. Vegapunk responds that Robin is right and that she's not the real body, explaining that she is Punk 02, with further comments alluding to her as the evil or bad Vegapunk. Her name is then said to be Lilith. Lilith claims she is short on research funds and demands the crew's valuables, stating she has no use for them beyond their financial worth. Nami incredulously questions her, saying they're in the middle of a freezing sea and that if Lilith is going to raise them up, then she may as well save them too. Lilith responds that she is not going to save them, claiming that a ship intruding into these waters is supposed to be impossible to begin with. She warns them that they'll be sunk by these boys, prompting the appearance of the sea beast weapons, which take the appearance of various aquatic or land-based animals but are mechanized and fit for living in the sea. While Frankie is in awe of the creatures, Usopp says that although he finds them cool, his awe has been quickly replaced by fear. Then sees Nami and Brook screaming out in shock and fear when someone calls Lilith on a den mushi. She answers, and the person on the other line berates her for plundering again and not displaying a scientist's pride. She calls the other person Shaka, with translations specifying that the kanji reads as correct, potentially indicating the person on the other line to be the true Vegapunk. Lilith responds to Shaka, telling them to shut up and asking if their pride will increase their research budget. Shaka responds that this crew isn't the type to surrender, correctly identifying them as the Straw Hats, who were made a Yonko crew shortly. Lilith, on the other hand, uses this as a reason to pursue them, claiming they should be carrying a mountain of treasure. Shaka says that she's making a mistake, which Lilith rejects, saying she's properly captured them and that they won't escape. However, then sees Shaka point out Zoro on the ship, saying that Lilith is underestimating them. Shaka lists Zoro's bounty and name before specifying that he's calm because he's able to kill Lilith instantly at that distance. Shaka says the same of Nico Robin, whom he also identifies with her epithet but not her bounty. Lilith responds that they can't possibly handle this many sea beast weapons, to which Shaka responds that the strong always see through the enemy first before cutting them down. Essentially, he means that at least Zoro and Robin have already concluded that they are able to fight their way out of this mess. Then sees Lilith realize that the rest of the crew's idiotic dancing around isn't indicative of their status as a whole and that she's let her guard down. Zoro then asks her if it's okay if he makes a request, prompting Shaka to tell Lilith to forget about it and bring them over since they're interested in the crew. Then shifts back to Luffy's group, where the Straw Hat Captain himself is asking Bonnie why she came here. She responds that this lab was just a normal one when she came here as a kid, prompting Luffy to repeat his question. Instead, she mutters about how, depending on Vegapunk's answer, she may have to kill him, shocking Luffy and Chopper. She then explains that Vegapunk's hands transformed her father into a cyborg, implying that Bartholomew Kuma is her father. As Luffy and Chopper remark on how cool that is, she continues to say that Kuma no longer has a human consciousness, isn't even aware of himself, and is nothing more than a living weapon. Jinbe comments on how that's not a nice story at all, with Bonnie agreeing that she won't forgive Vegapunk. Luffy tries to express his condolences but hilariously calls Bonnie Boggy in the process, causing her to freak out. Based on Chopper's announcement of their arrival at the surface, it appears that this continues to take place in the caves beneath the island's surface. Now on the surface, Luffy announces his intent to find some food, before likely slipping on ice based on the sudden exclamation here. Bonnie, meanwhile, thinks of how she did meet Sabo in Marie-Joy's, before saying she'll deal with it later. Luffy, meanwhile, comments on the giant robots and space monsters flying around the island, all of which are likely Vegapunk's creations. The group explores the island as Luffy tries riding various robotic creatures, eventually being eaten by one as Bonnie warns him of their intruder status. Based on the following dialogue, it seems that Jinbe saves Luffy from being eaten as Bonnie spots various foods, including a giant parfait, cookies, fruits, and lots of ice cream. However, the food is a holographic illusion, with the group walking right through the giant food rather than falling into it. Luffy jokes about dying, but Jinbe sets the group straight by explaining the properties of a hologram. Bonnie also assists here, educating Luffy and the group on what a hologram is and how fantastical its existence is relative to the rest of the world's technology. As the crew discusses the possibility of other things they've seen being holograms, a curious Chopper discovers buttons with pictures of food on them. Bonnie tries to get him to stop, commenting on how everything on the island seems to be fake. As Jinbe explains what he means, a new Vegapunk, Punk 06, debut amidst the group. Punk 06 explains that Egghead is a southern country despite being a winter island, and that the island aircon allows them to freely control the ground temperature of the island. Luffy thinks Punk is hologram too, so he punch it and Punk retaliate. As Luffy apologizes, Bonnie points out how a hamburger, drink, and fries came out of the machine Chopper was playing with. She also comments on how she can touch the food, asking who made the meal as Luffy and Chopper join in. Chopper tells Luffy to press the next buttons, which summon steaks, omelette rice, tonkatsu, cotton candy, cake, ramen, fried chicken, and a hot dog. Punk 06 expresses joy that they like the invention, which they call the unmanned cooking machine. They go on to specify that, with sufficient ingredients, it can make 500 different types of meals within a minute. They also say that the do what you can with surplus ingredients mode is the best, as Luffy, Bonnie, and Chopper continue making more food to eat. Punk 06 continues, saying that their lack of engineers limits the mass production of the invention. They go on to explain that the island aircan is the same, further explaining that it manages temperatures throughout the island and can also detect the activities of organisms on it. Explaining that it could eventually control the weather, they sadly say that the world doesn't have enough money for that technology. Bonnie questions Punk 06's ability to punch a hologram as they speak, while Luffy and Chopper continue making and eating food. Punk 06 attributes this feat to the photon pressure globes, which allow the light to act as more than just an exhibit. Punk 06 continues with an abstract discussion on what makes something real or not real, as Jinbe asks them exactly what they are. Punk 06 introduces themselves as Drive Vegapunk, shocking the group as the text introduces them as the Atlas version of Vegapunk. Bonnie questions the validity of this claim, as Luffy comments on how he's heard of Vegapunk from Kobe before. As they finish their conversation, abruptly shifts its perspective. Then shifts perspective to an unknown location in the New World, where Keiku, Rob Lucci, and Stussy of CP-0 have gathered. Keiku asks the group what they're supposed to do, emphasizing to Lucci that Vegapunk is alone, but is too much of a genius and too busy. He explains that, similar to the saying "I need a hand" to express that you need help, Vegapunk divided himself into 6 different people. Keiku continues that this means all 6 of the Vegapunks are the Dr. Vegapunks. Then sees Rob Lucci comment, asking if he's the strange one for thinking that can't possibly be something that exists. He then comments that geniuses are a pain. Before summarizing the group's plan and objectives. Apparently, they're returning the Kuma Seraphim to Egghead Island, and wiping out every Vegapunk there when they arrive. Keiku reminds him that Vegapunk's laboratory and projects are incredibly valuable, emphasizing the need to be mindful of them while fighting in the lab. Lucci responds that their task of wiping out the most useful man in the world may be related to the Lulacia incident from the other day, prompting Stussy to say she won't answer anything, especially to someone as intuitive as Lucci. Keiku begs Lucci not to involve them in whatever behind-the-scenes conflict they're now caught up in. That's all for today, Animaniacs. Thanks for watching. See you again next time for another One Piece episode. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for weekly updates.